All right, so today we are looking at Isaiah chapter 2. Isaiah chapter 2. And as we had looked at on last week with Isaiah, we saw this introduction where Isaiah was basically saying that the Lord is coming in, and he basically gave those children a whooping. All right. All right. We see Liz joining. Glad to see you. And we see that
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And we see we're on Isaiah chapter 2.
Isaiah chapter 2. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And so as we looked at it on last week, we saw how God came in and he told the Israelite folks, I'm sick and tired of all the false and phony worship that you guys are doing. And the Lord pointed all of it out. I'm sick of your sacrifices, your new moons, your feasts, and he just laid it out. And the thing to keep in mind is these are not people that don't know God. They know God, but they turn God into just an occasion, a thing to do, a little hobby, a little thing of this and that. It wasn't a relationship. It's something when a relationship turns into just being stuff that you do. Don't really have no heart, don't care, don't want to know, don't want to grow. And when you have circumstances like that, the problems will surface because you cannot have a relationship without love and care. Good evening, Beverly. We're on Isaiah chapter 2.
Good evening. I apologize.
No problem.
That I'm running 3, 4, 5 minutes late.
That's okay. I'm glad to see that you're there. All right. And so today we're going to pick up on that, and we're going to see Isaiah go through a whole nother description of what God sees. Now, I was talking to Wayne Smith in our preliminary. I hope you guys noticed that Wayne is sitting there looking all nice and everything. And I was talking to him in our preliminaries, and I was explaining to him that Isaiah kind of gives us a portrait. It's kind of like when you are going through your family albums. You know, you pull out some of those old pictures from like years ago, and you start taking, you start, oh, this is so-and-so when he was only 8, and this is so-and-so when he was a teenager, and you start talking about, those days. But the thing about God's photo album is he also has pictures of what you're going to look like in the future. Can you imagine that? Right? If God, when you go look at God's photo album, that's what these prophets do. Good evening, Tony. We're on Isaiah chapter 2.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening, Tony Ann.
Good evening.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to look at not just Isaiah, but all of these prophets. They're going to show us pictures of how things look in the past, how things look now, and how things will look in the future, right? And so this is the way God's photo album looks. And it's just a beautiful thing when you think about it. That's the way prophecy works. This is how it's going to look. Imagine if somebody showed you a picture not only of your past, but could show you a picture of what you're going to look like next month or next year or 5 years from now. And all of these things God is able to do through his prophets. So we're going to go through a series of looking at prophetic future events. And I will try to describe the events as they are given to us here in Isaiah. And we're going to talk a little bit about, way things are going to look. Some things are good. Some things are not so good. But either way, there's still the photo album of God. And we're going to take a look at it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get the reading in Isaiah chapter 2. Let's take a listen.
Chapter 2. The word that Isaiah the son of Emmaus saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. And he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. O house of Jacob, come ye, and let us walk in the light of the Lord. Therefore thou hast forsaken thy people, the house of Jacob, because they be replenished from the east, and are soothsayers like the Philistines, and they please themselves in the children of strangers. Their land also is full of silver and gold, neither is there any end of their treasures. Their land is also full of horses, neither is there any end of their chariots. Their land also is full of idols. They worship the work of their own hands, that which their own fingers have made. And the mean man boweth down, and the great man humbleth himself. Therefore forgive them not. Enter into the rock, and hide thee in the dust, for fear of the Lord, and for the glory of his majesty. The lofty looks of man shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of men shall be bowed down. The Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. For the day of the Lord of hosts shall be upon every one that is proud and lofty, and upon every one that is lifted up, and he shall be brought low. And upon all the cedars of Lebanon, that are high and lifted up, and upon all the oaks of Bashan, and upon all the high mountains, and upon all the hills that are lifted up, and upon every high tower, and upon every fenced wall, and upon all the ships of Tarshish, and upon all pleasant pictures. And the loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the haughtiness of men shall be made low, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. And the idols he shall utterly abolish, and they shall go into the holes of the rocks, and into the caves of the earth, for fear of the Lord, and for the glory of his majesty, when he ariseth to shake terribly the earth. In that day a man shall cast his idols of silver, and his idols of gold, which they made each one for himself to worship, to the moles and to the bats, to go into the clefts of the rocks, and into the tops of the ragged rocks, for fear of the Lord, and for the glory of his majesty, when he ariseth to shake terribly the earth. Cease ye from man, whose breath is in his nostrils, for wherein is he to be accounted of?
All right, there we go. Now, once again, don't get bewildered by this prophetic language. There's a lot of conversation, a lot of descriptions, and a lot of back and forth that Isaiah is saying. There's a lot of, sometimes you'll see repeated information. But most of this, we have good idea as to what particular area these particular statements are from. Now, once again, if I go back to my picture album analogy, imagine if somebody just dumped onto you, years and years of old pictures, and you're sorting through it, and you could look at this one. The minute you look at one that's like black and white, okay, this one was from back in the '60s or whatever, and you start putting them into categories. They're all kind of mixed up. This is the one that we had when we were celebrating so and so's 20th birthday, and this is when we were celebrating grandma's 15th wedding anniversary, whatever the case may be. And so you'll see all of these different categories like that here in prophecy, not just in Isaiah, but in all prophecy. And so what we're going to try to do is to give a description as to where each of these pictures that are drawn for us by the language, where do they belong and where do they go? And because some of the pictures are futuristic, then you will say, oh, this is going to happen. Now, imagine if God showed a picture of, a little kid, you got a son or a daughter, and they're like, 8, 9 years old, but then God showed you a picture of them when they're like 31, and they're married and got children. You be like, what? This is what's going to happen to my little boy, my little girl? It's future. And so you were like, but it hasn't happened in your timeline. You're still living while they're still 8, 9, 10 years old. But God showed you a picture. Now, this is what Isaiah is doing. He's showing us pictures of things that human beings will see. All right? But we have not seen them yet. Some of them in prophecy we have. There are some prophecies that are about Jesus and his coming. They're called messianic prophecies. And those prophecies we can identify and point out. But the prophecies all use little language and different things to help us be able to put a proper tag on it on the description so we can say or discern where it belongs. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Look what it says. Isaiah chapter 2 verse 1. It says, the word that Isaiah the son of Amos saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. So what are we talking about now? We're talking about Judah. Now remember, he's prophesying to both nations. When I say both nations, during Isaiah's time, Israel is split. They are two nations, kind of like how America was during the Civil War. It was, two nations. And so now this is what happened to Israel. So you got the northern part, which is still called Israel, the southern part, which is called Judah. All right. And so Isaiah is now prophesying to that southern part, and he's specifically calling out the city of Jerusalem, which is part of Judah. So he's saying, this is who I'm writing to and writing about. The word of the Lord from Isaiah the son of Amos that he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. Verse 2. It came to pass in the last days. Okay, that's a tag right there. In the last days. All right. So now, whose last days? Well, it already told us. Not the last days of the church, because the last days of the church are what? The rapture. And the last days of the church are full of a falling away. Remember, Jesus said the end will not come unless there first be a falling away. And when you go through the churches that are described in the book of Revelation, when he goes through all of those various churches, when he finally gets to the church of Laodicea, where is Jesus? Outside of the church doing what? Knocking, trying to get in. That's the last days of the church. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about the last days of Judah and Israel, but Judah specifically. And what that means is that they have some things that they need to be watching for as well. God made a promise to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob that their kingdom will reign eventually on earth. And we're going to point that out as we go through this. This is a description, and it's giving pictures, little photographic pictures of what their nation's reign or kingdom will look like. So it goes on. And it says, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow into it. All right, so what this is saying, we just got a snapshot and a picture of God ruling during the time of the millennium. All right, now the millennium from a eschatological time frame comes after the rapture. When this particular thing happens that we are reading about now, you and me are already in heaven. We've already been raptured up. We've either gotten there because we passed away, and to be absent from the body is to what? To be present with the Lord. Or we were caught up, if we were still alive when Jesus raptured the rest of the church, we were caught up with the Lord in the rapture. So according with this happening, the last days of Judah and Jerusalem comes after the church's last days. All right, so now we can see here that in these last days, God will establish on the top of the mountain. Now, what does that mean? When it says on the top of the mountain, that means that there will be nothing exalted higher than God. God will be on the top of the mountain, and there shall be exalted above the hills. Now, what does that mean? When it talks about the hills, anything that tries to reach high will not reach as high as what God's going to reach. In other words, God's going to come. He's going to set up a kingdom that will be more powerful, more established than any other kingdom that came before it. And that's going to happen during the millennial reign. Now, in the book of Revelation, in chapter 20, it talks about this. It talks about how when the Lord comes and he sets himself upon the earth. not the rapture. Remember, there's two comings. The rapture is one where he comes, but he doesn't come to earth. He comes to take away the church. And then he also comes again to establish his kingdom on earth during this 1,000 year millennial reign. This is what we're looking at here. And he's describing what this is going to look like when God finally comes to take charge on the natural earth, dealing with natural people. Okay. Now, what does he say here? He says, and all nations shall flow into it. In other words, all nations will be subservient or will have a connection to the the nation of Israel and Judah, that God will rule. And remember, Jesus Christ himself will be the one ruling it. And this will be established for 1,000 years. Now, let me just say this. Don't get the millennial reign of excuse me, the millennial reign of Christ on earth confused with the eternal kingdom. The eternal kingdom is when God comes and he creates a what? A new heaven and a new earth. There will also be a new Jerusalem. That's different. The millennial kingdom is another period of time of testing that will happen for 1,000 years. Specifically, it's stated like that in so many portions of scripture, but specifically in Revelation chapter 20, verse 4. Okay, we can see that reign will last 1,000 years. So, now, with that being said, let's keep going. And many people shall come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of God. I'm going to go up to God's kingdom. And this is what, when many people are talking about what? All the nations, which we just saw in verse 2. So, look at this picture of everybody now seeing who God is, seeing Jesus as who he said he was. Nobody's going to be talking about, I don't believe in a God. That's going to be done away with. That would be like somebody saying today, I don't believe in a sun or a moon or stars, when we see them every day. All right? And so no one's going to say that about the Lord God, because they're going to see Jesus. He's going to come and show himself. People say, well, I need evidence. Well, you're going to have evidence because you're going to be looking the Lord Jesus right in the face. And it's actually going to say that here in one of these scriptures here. So let me not get ahead of myself. All right. And verse 3, it says, and many people shall come and say, come, let us go up into the mountain of the Lord, to the house of God, of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways. During the millennial reign, guess who will be doing the teaching? You see me here trying to bring out some stuff here or there, but during the millennial reign, Jesus is going to be teaching himself. Can you imagine that? Now you say, now where are we going to be? The church. We will be co-rulers. Remember, we're the bride. So we're beside him, just like a wife would be beside her husband, helping them with what they do. The church, us, you and me, that are caught up, that are with the Lord, when Jesus comes back, we're coming back with him. And we're going to help him to rule and reign. We're going to have responsibilities during this period of time. We're going to be going to some of these nations and doing whatever it is that God would have us to do. I'm not sure specifically what it is, but the scripture tells us we will reign with him. In other words, we will help rule. And these are some of the circumstances in which we will be helping to govern. All right. And so it says, they're going to come up and they want to go hear what the Lord, the God of Jacob, has to say. And they want to go out and see and learn. Verse 4. And he shall judge among the nations and shall rebuke. Now, during the millennial reign, that's 1,000 years where there will be a different kind of peace. Now, if you happen to go, I'm not going to go there now, but if you do ever go to Revelation chapter 20 and read it, you'll see that during that 1,000 years, the devil is tied up and thrown into a pit. So that during that 1,000 years, while Jesus is ruling, the devil will have no ability to interfere. That's one of the key points to the millennial reign of Christ on earth. He will be there giving you, so no one can say, well, I've been tempted by the devil. Nor can we say, well, it's the culture that made me do it, because our culture is so bad. Because the culture is going to be built around Jesus Christ. And during this millennial reign, the only excuse you will have for not paying attention and listening and doing what Jesus said is because your heart refuses to do it. Now, somebody says, well, who would refuse to serve God during this time? Unfortunately, the scripture tells us that there will be some people during the millennial reign, and well, as we go through all of these prophets, that'll be pointed out to us, that will still say no. Just like Satan said no. Just like Judas, who walked with Jesus for 3.5 years, said, I want to do things my own way. So during this millennial reign, when we're helping govern, there still will be people that will need to be judged. All right. So verse 4, let's read through that again real quick. And he shall judge among the nations and shall rebuke many people. Some people are going to need to be rebuked. Some people will listen to the rebuke. Some people will adhere, and some people will not. Okay. And will need to be rebuked. Many people shall be rebuked. Okay. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Is that famous verse. And what does that mean? They're going to take all the resources that are here on this earth that are for war. Imagine melting down all the metals and all the materials that we had for building tanks and rockets and nuclear bombs and all that material reused for good. Let me tell you something. Jesus is going to be a great ruler. He's going to be better than Obama. He's going to be better than Trump. He's going to be the best ruler this planet has ever seen. There will be no need for war because Jesus is ruler. And Jesus is the what? Prince of Peace. But there still will be situations where individuals will need to be what? Rebuked. Because they're still trying to scheme. It's amazing when you think about it. All right? So they're going to melt down their swords into plowshares, their spears into pruning hooks. And those plowshares are for doing what? Productive things. Farming. It's pruning hooks for making materials and creative things. No more war things. And it says, nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. War's over. All right? Now, sin's not over, but war's over. Why is war's over? Because you got a real government now. A government ruled by Jesus Christ. And there will not be any need for war. You see what we got to look for? This is a snapshot of the future. All right? It's coming. Verse 5. O house of Jacob, come ye, let us walk in the light of the Lord. Let us do that. We're going to do it in the future. We might as well what? Do it now. We might as well do it now. Verse 6. Therefore thou hast forsaken thy people, the house of Jacob, because that they replenish from the east. In other words, instead of listening to God in Jerusalem, they were listening to the ways that were in the east. And if you think of east, you think about that's all that east of Israel and east of Jerusalem. That's where all of the Arab and Muslim and various things. So basically, and it's not just picking on them. It's just talking about other religions. It could be any kind of other religion, and more than likely, it will be whatever kind of religion is set up during the time of the Antichrist. Because at this particular time, the Antichrist has already come and has gone. All right, so whatever he had set up. All right, so it may not even have been probably something from Muhammad. It's some kind of Antichrist religion that people are still going to be clinging to. Okay? It says, therefore forsake the people, O house of Jacob, because they be replenished from the east. God should be the only one replenishing you. Okay? and are soothsayers. Right? Not prayers of God, not seekers of God, soothsayers. That means you seek what? Spiritual gain outside of the ways of God. You know, there's a lot of people that want to, they want to be spiritual, but I don't want Jesus. I want to be spiritual, but I don't want to go through God. And so they go through tarot cards and palm readers and astrology and you know, all that zodiac stuff. They do all kinds of stuff. We could name a dozen different things that people do, and the scripture calls them soothsayers. They're seeking spiritual things outside of seeking it through God. They are soothsayers like the Philistines, and they please themselves, and that's one thing to highlight or underline. They please themselves in the children of strangers. They serve foreign and unknown things rather than serve the known God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's a sad situation. Verse 7. Their land is also full of silver and gold. All right. They seem to be what? Prosperous. They have a lot. Neither is there any end to their treasure. Money coming in left and right. Just having bountiful excess. All right. Neither is there any in. Let me read that again. Their land is also full of horses. In other words, they got what? They have major transportation. Now, horses and the scripture here is talking about transportation. Who knows what kind of transportation we're going to have in the future? During this time, they didn't know what a Cadillac was. Mm-hmm. They had no idea, you know, what a Tesla car was. And who knows what we're going to have during the time of the millennial reign? What did the Antichrist's time frame produce? Well, we don't know, right? Because we haven't got to that snapshot yet. We're going to get to it, but right now we're looking at a different. We're going to be moving around, you know, different places. Right now we're in the millennial reign, okay? And so we're going to have all kinds of great horses, and neither are there any end to their chariots. So it's talking about their technology. The chariot was a technology for that day. It was a sophisticated a technology that was put together that allowed you to travel with the speed of sometimes 3 and 4 and 5 horses all running together, tied to one chariot. Super speed. Right? But today we got different kind of horsepower, right? Now, horsepower is in the engines of cars. Mm-hmm. Verse 8. Their land is also full of idols. You see that? Mm-hmm. So even though Jesus is there and it is stated he's the one to worship, you should worship God, they still have their own idols. This is in the millennial reign, when people know God is who he is, and they still have idols. They worship the works of their hands. What I can do, I worship my ability, my creativity, what I'm able to do. That which their own fingers have made, rather than worshiping the God that made them. They worship something they made. Sad situation. But this is in the millennial reign. The devil's tied up. They can't say the devil is tempting them. All right? He's in the chains for this whole period of the millennial reign. Now, it does say he will be let loose for a short season, so that the people that want to follow a different way will have something to follow. And God's going to give it to them. It's amazing. Sometimes we wonder, well, why does God do that? Because he gives you what you want. You don't want to follow God. You want to follow something else. And then God gives you something else to follow. But what does that following something else produce? Eternal death. Okay? Verse 9. The mean man bows down. The great man humbleth himself. Therefore, forgive them not. And they're talking about this act of worship. The mean man, they said, let all the nations go to Jerusalem to serve God. So you got a mean man, but he's still bowing down. I'm bowing down to Jesus in action, but what? I'm a mean man. I don't care about Jesus. And the great man humbleth himself. Well, then if he thinks he's so great, why is he humbling himself? He's doing it for what? Once again, for show. Jesus talked about the Pharisees. They prayed to be what? To be seen. They give money so people will see them. And he said they have their reward. So you're going to have a lot of people during the millennial reign that will go through the actions. They're going to go down to Jerusalem. They're going to go there. They're going to see Jesus. They're going to bow down. They're going to humble themselves. Yep, we're going to let you be our God. But in their heart, they got their own agenda. We need to make sure that we have the agenda that God has and not have our own agenda. Let's keep going. Verse 10. Enter into the rocks and hide thee in the dust for fear of the Lord and for the glory of his majesty. Now, what this is saying is they wish they could go somewhere and hide. I don't want to be led by God. Now, we'll see this as well in Revelation chapter 6, verses 16 and 17. It talks about how the people of the earth, when Jesus first comes, will say, hide us from the wrath of the Lamb. And that same mindset, as you can see here, continues during the millennial reign. They don't want, and why do they want to be hidden? Because they're doing and thinking things that are not godly. People that do dirt don't want to do it in the daylight. Mm-hmm. You know, folks saying they don't wait for the sun. They're not waiting for the sun to shine and the lights to be on to go rob and steal. They want to really do it while the lights are off and while it's dark. All right, and so when you look at verse 10, 11, and 12 here, all of these, it says, you enter into the rocks and hide thee into the dust for the fear of the Lord and for the glory of his majesty. God is greater than your evil. The stuff that you're trying to do cannot escape God's great ability to know. He's going to know what's going on. The lofty look of men shall be humble. You can go try to hide yourself, but all that greatness that you think you have, God will humble you. Because you won't humble yourself, God will humble you. And the haughtiness of men shall be brought down, shall be bowed down. That great man is bowing down just so he can go through the show of it. Well, he's going to be bowed down forcibly by God. And God alone shall be exalted in that day. Nobody else is going to be worshipped. Only God. So anyone that's trying to set themselves up as some kind of God or some kind of leader, I want people to look up to me. That ain't going to work. Not in God's kingdom. Not in the millennial reign. It don't work no time, really. It's just that God allows it to kind of slide through now. But during the millennial reign, that's going to be smacked down with a quickness. It's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. Because once again, you're dealing with a world where Jesus is physically here. He has come back to earth, has established himself as the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings, God of Gods. And you still want to have some kind of mess going on in who you really want to be and show your allegiance to? God's not going to have it, and he's going to bring it down. And he goes on. Look what he says in verse 13. And upon all the cedars of Lebanon that are high and lifted up, and upon all the oaks of Bashan. Now, I underline Bashan. If y'all remember, as we've been going through a lot of our studies, when we talked about Bashan, Bashan's history, and a lot of times when it mentions other nations, it's important to know what's the history behind it. Bashan was a place where the giants came from. And remember, the essence of what the scripture says about giants is that usually those giants come from a mingling of evil spirits with human activity. In Genesis chapter 6, it talks about the fallen angels coming down and laying and having relationships with the women of men, and they gave birth to giants. And so when you see, when I see Bashan, I'm always thinking about, well, these are people that are trying to hold on to ancient or old evil spirit, demonic type of thinking. Right? When Jesus was on the cross, he said in the Psalms from a messianic prophecy, he said, the bulls of Bashan are around me, thinking they had victory because Jesus was dying on the cross. And you can see the evil spirits thinking, well, I think we won. I think we've got God defeated. And people will continue to think they can overthrow God. It's not happening. 14. And upon all the high mountains and upon all the hills, they are lifted up. All right? They're trying to go what? Above God. What did Satan say? I will lift myself. I'm going to rise above the Most High. Keep trying to go what? Above God. I don't want somebody to tell me what to do. I want to do my own thing. And there's a lot of people like that. You know, I don't care if this is God. I don't want anybody telling me what to do. I want to do what I want to do. A lot of people have that mindset. And we got to recognize that's the same mindset that Satan had. I'm going to be like the Most High. I'm going to lift up my throne above the throne of God.
But in this chapter, even though, Satan is locked up for a while, the people still wanted to be above God.
Exactly.
And didn't want to serve him. And it's like, what's wrong with you?
So a lot of people think, well, if it wasn't for the devil, I wouldn't be like this. Well, no, he's locked up now. So what's your excuse now? Well, if it was the culture, the way things are, no, Jesus is setting the culture. So if you got the culture being established by Jesus, Satan's chained up. What's your excuse now? And what God is doing is saying, I'm showing you. This is who you are. And so when you are rejected by God, you have no one to blame. Okay? And it says in verse 16, and upon all the ships of Tarshish, this is their might and their ability to travel and to go. It's going to be all kinds of stuff. Who knows what kind of ships they have during the time after the Antichrist has come and gone. And upon all pleasant pictures. So what does that mean? All these visions that they have, things that they have drawn up or dreamed up or imagined to do. What kind of picture do you have in your mind when it comes to your relationship with God? My picture in my mind is me serving God. Some people's picture in their mind is me being equal to God. That's what they're trying to get to. You know, I have a picture in my mind when I'm playing golf of what I think I should be doing when I swing the club. And 90% of the time, I ain't doing it. I'm swinging kind of off, all right? Because my picture don't match up with my effort. All right? But the thing about it is that when it comes to serving God, I take my picture and I take it out of my own ability to do. And I give it to God. God, this is what I want to do. I know I'm never going to do it perfectly if I try to do it by myself. Anything I try to do for God will look like my golf swing. Messed up. But if I give it to God, then my worship will be perfected. But people have a vision and a picture of them lifting their own selves up above God. Look at verse 17. And the loftiness of men. What does loftiness mean? I'm trying to lift myself up by my own will. I don't want God doing it for me. The loftiness of men shall be brought down. You will discover that you cannot do anything apart from God. God is the waymaker. All things have their being in God. He's the creator of all things. The thing about God is, see, we need God. And there's a lot of things we need even here. We need air, We need water and food. What does God need to be God? Nothing. He's God all by himself.
Amen.
And that's an important thing to keep in mind. And it says, and the haughtiness of men shall be made low. And the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. Nobody else but God is going to be exalted. Okay? Verse 18, and the idols he shall utterly abolish. So the Lord's going to make, there is no need and no place for any idols during the millennium. Verse 19, and they shall go into the holes of the rocks and into the caves of the earth for the fear of the Lord and for the glory of his majesty when he arises to shake terribly the earth. Now, why are they going into the caves? Why are they going into the clefts of the rock? Because they want to do dirt and they don't want to be seen. They're going to be planning all that. Let's go meet in the deep, deep cave where maybe God can't see us and we can develop our next strategy. Why are you strategizing against the God of all creation? But this is in the millennial reign. Church is already finished up. Antichrist is come and gone. And now it's Jesus on earth. And look at what people are still doing. So this lets you know, when you serve God, you count yourself as a blessing. If your heart is after God, that is something special. Thank God every day that you have a heart to seek God, because so many people don't have that heart. That's the greatest treasure you could have. I want to know God and I want to know his ways. That's the most valuable thing that has ever been given to man. A hunger for God. Okay, and if you have that, then you are going to do well. Verse 20, in that day a man shall cast his idols of silver and his idols of gold, which they made each one for himself to worship, to the moles and to the bats. All right, so there will be some to be like, you know what, this ain't worth it. I'm not serving these idols. I see the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I'm going to serve him. Some people will be converted in their ways. All right? But to be converted, you got to do what? You got to get rid of your idols. You got to get rid of all that stuff that doesn't really represent you serving God, but represents you trying to create your own thing to serve. Remember, they said they served the idols that they made with their own hands. That's the same thing that Aaron did when Moses went up to the mountain. Remember that? All right, verse 21. To go into the clefts of the rocks and into the tops of the ragged rocks for the fear of the Lord and for the glory of his majesty when he arises to shake terribly the earth. God is going to shake the earth. And what is that going to do? It's going to bring out everything that's trying to hide. You know, you have one of them old style piggy banks, you know, it had that little hole in the bottom, and then when you wanted to get the money out, you turn it upside down, but sometimes you turn it upside down, it still won't come out. What do you got to do? You got to start shaking it, and everything starts kind of moving. You know, gravity moves everything to the center of that hole, and all the money falls out. And that's what this is kind of describing. God is shaking the earth in a way, not so much that there's earthquakes, but he's shaking it in a way that people can't. They're gonna slide out of those caves. They can't stay in there because the very presence of God, the majesty of who God is going to draw them out. You're going to have to show yourself and God and everybody else who you really are. Are you a servant of God or not? Now, keep in mind, we're looking at a photo album, a picture of the future. These are pictures that God showed Isaiah of things that are going to happen in the future. From God's perspective, it's already happened. That's why he can show us the picture now. And we're getting the picture shown to us through these words of description. But it's going to happen. And it's kind of sad. All right. So they're going to be, the Lord is going to shake the earth. Our final verse 22. Cease ye from men, whose breath is in his nostrils, for wherein is he to be accounted of. Now, this chapter ends with a very important statement. Cease ye from men. In other words, stop trying to follow man's ways, because man can't even sustain himself. You take his breath away, what happens to a man?
He died.
He dies. Right? If you take away air from God, what does that do? It don't do anything, because God is the one that made air. And if God needed, not so much needed, but if he wanted some more air to be around, you know what he would just do? Let there be. Just like when he said, let there be light, and there was light. You know, and so we don't want to be in a circumstance where we're trusting in something that can't even sustain itself. Right? So how you gonna sustain me? You can't even. You ain't got nothing to take care of yourself, but now you gonna take care of me? You can't do it. And so God's the only one that can do it. So he says, cease from men whose breath is in his nostrils, for wherein is he to be accounted of. See, he has to bring an account to God. Who does God got to bring an account to? Nobody. God is omnipresent. He's all powerful, and he doesn't answer to nobody. The only thing God does is he says that he brings forth his word, and his word will not what? Come back void. So when God says something, it's going to happen just the way God says it. All right. So we're at the end of this chapter. We are by no means finished with this vision of Isaiah. Isaiah's got all kinds of visions that we're going to try to bring together, and we're going to try to look at all of these different verbal pictures that Isaiah will bring and show to us. Some of it of the past. We're going to look at some things that happened in Isaiah's day, which is our past, Isaiah's contemporary time. But a lot of it is about his and our future. And that's why it's called prophetic, and that it talks about times of the end, or eschatology. And we're looking to see that. All right, so we're going to stop here. Any other comments or questions on what we talked about today?